Welcome to the Charity Changemakers podcast, your weekly dose of inspiration and action for the changemakers of the world. Each week, we dive deep into the world of impactful charities. We connect you with the passionate leaders, the innovative ideas, and the real-world stories that are making a difference. Whether you're a seasoned non-profit professional or just starting out, this podcast is your chance to learn from the best and get fired up to make a positive change. We'll explore the challenges and triumphs of running a successful charity. We'll hear about the fundraising strategies, impactful programs, and the stories of the people whose lives are being transformed. But most importantly, we'll leave you feeling empowered and equipped to take action in your community and the organisations in which you work. So, buckle up, Changemakers, because we're about to embark on a journey of inspiration and impact.
I'm joined today by Donna-Louise Cobban on the Charity Changemakers podcast. Donna-Louise is the Chief Executive of Emmaus Village Carlton, and we share in a conversation around her career journey to date, which actually started and it was very much formed and foundations within retail, and has then made that transition into the charity sector and worked her way up to a Chief Executive position. It's a really inspiring conversation where actually Donna-Louise shares some of the importance of putting good people around you, of peer-to-peer learning, of people that can empower and be your cheerleaders, as well as talking about training and qualifications and the importance of having self-belief and confidence in your skills and experience. I hope you're really going to enjoy this episode. I certainly enjoyed recording it. And anyway, enough from me. It's time to meet our changemaker. Hi, Donna-Louise, and thank you for joining us on the Charity Changemakers podcast. It's lovely to have you here today.
Oh, thanks, Adam. It's so lovely to be here too. I'm really pleased to be here.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you. No, I really appreciate you making the time to share with us. And what we're finding with these conversations is some wonderful insights and really helpful learnings for other people within the sector, or maybe those that are aspiring to join the sector as well. So we really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with us today. We really enjoy the opportunity to get to know our guests a little bit better, and we've got some quickfire questions that we're going to fire at you at this stage, just for the listener, the audience, obviously to get to know you, which would be really good. So tell me, what is the most interesting place you've ever visited?
Oh goodness, I would probably say, from my perspective, I loved visiting Las Vegas. I've been a couple of times, and I just found it a really interesting mix of cultures and experiences, and it's something that is completely different from your average holiday or travel destination, and I was just enthralled by it. And the old Las Vegas and the new Las Vegas, and how it completely regenerates itself, and that they will literally just knock down a casino and a hotel and build a new one if they feel like it. And it's a real example of the old and new, and how you can experience a city either really lavishly or on a budget. I loved everything about Las Vegas and think it's really interesting. And I encourage everybody to go at one time in their life.
Yeah, it's I've done a fair amount of the States, but I've never done Vegas yet. So
it's just really interesting, and it's great for people watching and celebrity spotting and things like that. And it's different. It's in the middle of nowhere, but it's densely populated area with tourists and people going on conferences and conventions. It's fascinating place.
Yeah, absolutely. And from my point of view, obviously, hosts quite a lot of sporting events, from the boxing to the Formula One now. And
I love Formula One. I'm a big Formula One fan, and I loved the Las Vegas Grand Prix last year, even though it was filled with disasters. Then they got there in the end. But to me, again, that's the epitome of Las Vegas. There was so much razzmatazz and pomp and ceremony. And they got a Formula One event out of it as well. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, everything's bigger and better in America, right? So great. No, it's really really good. So second quickfire question for you. What are you reading at the moment?
I love actually reading proper books. I think I've got about 3 on my coffee table. But the one that I'm reading at the minute is Ruskin Park by Rory Cellan-Jones. And I was drawn to it because I follow Rory and his wife on Instagram with their tales of Sophie from Romania. And they adopted a dog over a year ago, called Sophie. And there's a hashtag Sophie from Romania. And I started following them over the dog, and then realised it was the same guy, Rory Kellan-Jones, who has been a BBC correspondent for many years, and is kind of like a throwback to my youth, seeing him on the TV, and then realised that he's a writer. And so he's written this amazing book called Ruskin Park about his mother, and that his mother died, and he found all of these letters about his past, and that he's illegitimate, and he just basically discovered this whole world that he didn't know. And so it's this beautiful tale about him and his mum, and kind of what his mum went through in the 50s and 60s as a single female, pregnant, and she worked for the BBC. And it's quite heartbreaking in some respects, over like the attitudes of the time and what she went through as a single pregnant woman. And it had moments that made me think of my own family. So my dad is illegitimate. He's no longer with us anymore. And him and my uncle were both illegitimate from a slightly different older generation. But it just made me think over sort of what my grandmother went through, and how society back then viewed women, having illegitimate babies, and they were really cast aside in society. And it was just a really interesting read. So I totally recommend it. And I love Rory's Instagram and the social media. So a real inspirational tale of his childhood and what they went through.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's great. Okay, so that's two recommendations. We've got a recommendation of a book and a recommendation of where to go on holiday. So that's
Yes.
that's brilliant. And our final quickfire question for you: outside of work and obviously the pressures of that you face, obviously working within charity sector, what do you like to do to relax? What kind of hobbies have you got on the go?
My main kind of form of relaxation and sort of hobby at the minute is training in the gym. So I train 4 times a week in the gym. I like a personal challenge, and I've set myself 4 challenges this year. I did 1 challenge at the weekend, and I've got 3 more to go over the summer, based around running challenges.
Right, okay.
To relax and to reset after work, I train at the gym, and I'm doing lots of strength-based weight training and running training. It might sound a bit mad doing 4 lots of training per week, and running on top of that as well. But it's something that I really love, and it's something that I've really pushed myself. I love competing against myself, and I don't compare myself to others in the gym. I'm quite a newcomer over the last year to weights-based training, and I'm really proud of my achievements and what I'm doing there, and the impact it's having on me personally, and it really helps manage my resilience and manage those pressures, because I think, well, if I can lift whatever weights in the gym, then I can deal with the pressures of being a CEO. So it's a good thing to do, and I love a personal challenge. So it's all part of my running challenges for this year.
Yeah, great. Well, I can definitely relate to that. Enjoying a personal challenge. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what the running challenge? Are you happy to share? What's the challenge coming?
Yeah. So on Saturday, just gone, I took part in a walking challenge. So it was with Samaritans, the national charity. They do a national walk each year to raise awareness of suicide prevention, and colleagues and I did the national walk, and they usually do 2 different distances, kind of like a short medium walk and a longer walk. I've never felt I've had the ability to do the longer walk, and this year my friends and I trained to do the longer walk. So we walked just over 26 miles on Saturday.
Amazing.
So my feet are feeling it still this week, but that was a great personal achievement because I'd never walked that distance in a day before. And it was just a great opportunity to support Samaritans, which I'm really keen on supporting. And so that was on Saturday. And then I'm running the Bedford Half Marathon in September.
Yeah, great.
And so I've done the 4 half marathons, so this will be my 5th half marathon. And so I'm really working on, again, strength-based training to improve my running. And then in October and December, I'm taking part in a mixed doubles high rocks event. High rocks is a big new thing that's kind of becoming more and more popular. It's a combination of running and functional weighted exercises. It's becoming really popular at the minute in gyms and kind of throughout the UK and Europe. And so, yes, I'm doing 2 mixed doubles events later this year for those.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Well, that's again something that I've never heard of, so I'm going to have to go and Google that and
Have a
look at
look.
that as well. Yeah.
Have a look. It's slightly bonkers. It's eight separate 1 kilometre runs,
Yeah.
in between 8 functional weighted exercises, like rowing, using ski erg, sandbag lunges, burpee broad jumps,
Yeah.
things like that. So.
Okay, you might, blimey, this podcast might be a bit dangerous for me now. I'm definitely going to be looking that up. I started, sort of weight training in the gym about 6 months ago. So, and
Right.
completely new to it myself, having
Yeah.
previously done lots of cycling and running events and those
Yeah.
types of things. So yeah, it's been quite different. But yeah, looking for that next challenge. So yeah, I might just
Oh,
stumble across
I
one.
definitely recommend High Rocks for a challenge.
Yeah,
Have a look,
yeah,
and it's amazing. It's such an inclusive sporting activity, that any age groups can do it, any fitness levels can do it, and it's just a really great way to come together. And my local gym has embraced sort of the High Rocks Challenge,
yeah.
and there's different classes, and they are really getting behind the local gym community, taking part in all of these events. So yeah, it's a lovely challenge to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something really nice about that team mentality, community side that comes through
Yeah,
sport and that working together. But
yeah.
yeah,
I think there's about 40 odd of us going from my local gym in October and December. So yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a great community event.
yeah. Great, Donna-Louise, that's
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. I probably could just spend the next hour talking to you about that, but I
race
won't.
training and running.
Yeah, that's right. Indeed. No, well, obviously, we're here to obviously talk about your journey within the charity sector and,
Yes.
and how you got here, and with guests that
Yeah.
come onto the podcast. Such a range of ways that people have found themselves coming into the sector. And I'm really, fascinated by that, really interested in your journey. Obviously, it was sort of beginning
Yeah.
in retail,
Yeah.
and that grounding in your career within high street, high street retail. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I've always worked in retail even since like I left school, and I just like worked my way up in different retailers. Um, Discovered that I was actually quite a good leader or like manager, and then kind of was lucky with different promotions and moved to different retail companies. Working in like central London, and I think like one of the pinnacles was working for Laura Ashley, who was obviously the standalone shops are no longer on the high street. But I was store manager of Laura Ashley in Oxford Street, and that was just an amazing experience, a wonderful company to work for, and they really, I think, shaped a lot of my management career in my early to mid 20s,
Mm.
and loved working for them. And then, from there, I moved to other retailers, and then in central London, but then wanted to move out of London, so moved to Bedfordshire, and then was able to work for Debenhams, the big department store that again
Yeah,
is no longer with us.
yeah,
So,
sure.
and I was deputy store manager of the Debenhams here in Bedford in the town centre. And again, it was a great team to work in, really great. Team spirit. I was there for several years,
Yeah,
and sort of really loved it. And I went on a store manager sort of like training program. So was picked with a number. I think there was about 8 of us throughout the southeast, and we were picked to go on almost like a finishing school for to be a Debenhams store manager.
right.
And so did that it was like a year's training course for prospective store managers. But that at the end of it, several of us got poached by another high street retail department store. So it didn't go down very well with Debenhams because they put us through this amazing training program. And a few of us did leave, and we went to work for another, high street department store, who I won't name because I ended up leaving them. And I've never done it before, but I basically walked out of my job because my values were not aligned with that other department store. And I just felt that it wasn't me and that I couldn't embrace their values to the point where I just felt under a huge amount of pressure and I just wasn't comfortable working for them. And made the very difficult decision to basically resign to my area manager. And I've never done that before. And I literally kind of phoned my area manager one day and said, I'm not doing this. I can't do it. And I said that, I'd obviously valued the opportunity because they had headhunted quite a few Debenhams managers at the same time. And I said, I valued that opportunity. And I was store manager of this other department store. And I said, I just didn't feel it and I just couldn't do it. And I think they were a bit shocked and taken aback. And it was at the same time where I thought, I'm not sure I want to work in retail anymore. And I think that was a steep learning curve for me I just didn't share the same values, that my values were changing as a person and as a manager. And so I wouldn't recommend it, but I literally walked out of my job and didn't work my notice period and left that. And then it was one of those moments over, what on earth am I going to do?
Yeah, that's right. It's sort of a crossroads kind of moment that people talk about in their life. So kind of, what did you do? What happened next?
Yeah. So it was a bit of a bizarre time. I worked for two mates of mine, and they had their own small business, and they needed someone to help out, and basically. Went to work with them. I would start the day by making them cups of tea and breakfast. And then I was basically kind of doing a lot of admin support, bookkeeping, emails, answering the telephone and just helping them with their business. And so I did that for about 18 months. And it was a real safety net. And it was lovely working for mates. And we had, they were very supportive of the situation. They were very accommodating. They gave me an opportunity. And it just gave me a bit of a buffer over, I don't want to work in retail, but I didn't know what to do. And then I knew that obviously it wasn't going to be forever. You can't work with your friends like that forever. And there were a couple of lovely guys who kind of rescued me in that moment. And so I worked for them for 18 months. But then kind of at the same time, I was going through a divorce and again had a life-changing situation. So I'd kind of moved, stepped away from a big career, started working for a couple of mates, ended up leaving my ex-husband and going through a divorce, still thinking, what on earth am I going to do with my life? I've kind of made this massive change and I've instigated, a lot of change for myself without really having a plan. Again, not something that I would recommend to people, but these things happen. And I then took some time for myself to think about, right, what am I going to do? And I'd never been to university when I was younger. And so the opportunity came to me to go to college and university. So I spent 4 years going to a combination of Bedford College and University of Bedfordshire.
Yes, right.
And again, it was completely different, nothing I'd ever done before. Probably some of the best 4 years of my life because I was a mature student and getting qualifications. And again, I wanted to, kind of get that personal challenge. And I got a string of qualifications that I never thought I would ever get. And I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it and I could get a degree type qualification. I could get other below degree level qualifications as well. And I just kind of worked for 4 years as a student, basically, and loved it.
Yeah, and what were the courses that you were studying?
So I was studying photography at Bedford College,
Yeah.
and so I've got level 1, 2, and 3
Okay.
photography qualifications, and that led to me doing some paid photography work.
Yes.
And so I've done some like weddings and portraiture and event work as a photographer. And I'd always loved photography, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could actually get qualifications and
Yeah.
that my work was worth it, and my work was to a good standard. But again, I wanted to learn some of the technical, skills of being a
Yeah.
photographer. And again, I wanted to push myself with that personal challenge to think, actually, I can do this. So I'm again really proud of my achievements, really proud of my photography work,
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
And then the other big thing that I did do, I did some initial training qualifications to become qualified trainer, and then I did a teaching qualification.
Right.
So I'm technically qualified trainer and teacher.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. And
so
where did the opportunity then to work within the sector, or that first opportunity, that first, I guess, that spark, or that first thought to say,
yeah.
this is where I'm going?
So I was looking. When I was studying, my ambition was to be like a training manager, and I was looking for training manager sort of roles, because I thought actually I can do that. I've now literally got the qualifications,
Yeah.
and I was applying for training manager roles in charities, and I had quite a few rejections because I'd never worked in the charity sector. And then a friend of mine said, go and volunteer for a charity because then you'll get experience. And that's when I started volunteering at Samaritans. And I joined initially to be part of the training team. But then they said, you can't just do that, you have to be a listening volunteer first.
Right.
So I became a listening volunteer, and then very soon after that joined the training team to then get experience in the charity sector. I was still getting knockbacks for jobs and things. And then a friend of mine sought a job at the Alzheimer Society,
Mhm.
and they said, why don't you apply for that? Like, it's not a training manager job, but it sounds interesting. And I thought, they'll never take me seriously. I'm not going to, get an interview, but
Yeah.
hey, let's do it. And I applied, and it was a new position within Hertfordshire. Alzheimer Society,
Yeah.
and they were looking for someone with strong leadership and management experience,
Sure.
not necessarily the charity experience, and that what they needed was that management and leadership
Mm.
skills. And so went for the interview, didn't really think I was beaten with a chance, got invited back for a second interview, and then got the phone call when I was at college to say they wanted to offer me the job. And I really didn't quite believe it because I didn't think, I would, stand a chance without the experience.
Yeah.
And that my manager at the time said that she saw something in me, and she saw, some inspiration, and that she was willing to give me a chance.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I joined the Alzheimer Society, working in the early memory diagnosis treatment team.
Okay.
So they had a contract at the time with the NHS in Hertfordshire.
Mm.
And so it was a fascinating job role, and I managed non-clinical staff working in the NHS.
Yes. Right. Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it was fascinating experience. And it was just, I always value that time because, yeah, they gave me that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you talk about the hiring manager, the line manager, talking about the fact they saw someone with that spark, that
Yeah.
interest, that passion
Yes.
for the cause and wanted to give. And I think
Yeah,
that's, to be honest, I think that's more than half the battle in this sector when it comes to recruitment. If you can get people that are really
definitely.
passionate about your cause, then you
Exactly.
can invest in them to learn more of the role and give them that experience that they need. But that sometimes, yeah, like I
Exactly.
say, is half the battle.
Exactly, and I've done that in subsequent years. When recruiting for staff or managers,
Mm.
for me it's about the person. Obviously, the experience and skills are important, but there's a lot you can teach somebody. You can't teach somebody, their values or their attitudes and their passion and. So I often look at that because that's how I was fortunate with some of my career changes and choices. So
Mm.
I want to give that back to other people that you can teach people things, you can't teach values and compassion.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, we see people make that transition from the retail sector into the charity sector a fair amount. I think actually across the this first season of the podcast, we've probably spoken to 3, potentially 4 people that have got retail in their
Yeah.
backgrounds. Because I think it gives you such exposure to such a range of different things, doesn't it? From
Yeah.
HR to marketing to finance to that
No.
commerciality of sales.
It's very transferable, and I have to give a shout out. I have a coach, and I've had a coach for the last couple of years. His name is Jamie Anderson, and he is a CEO for Age UK, and he had a background in retail,
Right.
and then went from retail to the charity sector. And so we clicked straight away because we had similar experiences, and because he's CEO of an Age UK, he totally valued my experience, from EGK and that transition into the charity sector. So yeah, I've seen it a few times from retail into the charity sector because there's so many transferable skills and experiences.
Absolutely. And I suspect we'll delve a little bit more into coaching and support networks that are around you as we talk. But so you get that first opportunity at Alzheimer Society, an organisation that I guess to a degree maybe you might say took a chance, took that risk to employ you. And what was the trajectory then of your career?
So because my team and I were based in the NHS. We worked with consultant psychiatrists and psychologists and mental health nurses, and so I had a lot of exposure to kind of that environment and that kind of senior leadership, and so I was heavily involved from the management side, and their leadership team really embraced that, and they were very welcoming and supportive. So I ended up being involved in lots of discussions, lots of meetings. The trust underwent a big transformation program, and I was included as in the management team in that, because the service line lead saw in me, that potential and was happy for me to be included in that project. And I secured additional funding for the Alzheimer Society, and that was like my first exposure into like income generation, and that really helped. Obviously the Alzheimer's Society, but the NHS side of it, and I was able to secure, in excess of like 6 figures of funding, which was able to like double the size of my team, which really helped the side of the NHS in their transformation, and so that just gave me that grounding, and the kudos within the NHS. I have no clinical qualifications and was working with some really senior managers in the NHS. But I'm very down to earth in my approach in the management teams and leadership teams that I've worked in, and huge amount of respect for my NHS colleagues. And I think it was just very much around like my approach and being part of that team really helped me progress in my career there. And so I was with them, I think, for just around 3 years, but in that time I was promoted. So I gained a promotion to a senior manager within the Alzheimer's Society, and I won an award. So I won a national award for best manager in dementia support services.
Right.
And again, I was totally gobsmacked to win that award. And it was so lovely that one of my NHS manager colleagues nominated me with my Alzheimer's Society manager. And they didn't tell me. And then they didn't tell me they'd nominated me. And I got this random email and phone call to say that I'd been shortlisted for this award. And they showed me the nomination, and I think it brought a tear to my eye over what people thought of me. And then I had to be scrutinised by the judges, and then went to a big award ceremony in London, black tie type award ceremony, and totally didn't think would anywhere near win. And then it got to my category, and they were reading out, before they said who the winner was, they read out a bit about the person, and I was sat there thinking, that sounds like me. They're talking about me. Why are they talking about me? And then they read out my name and said that I was the winner. And I just couldn't believe it. It was an amazing moment. And I was just so proud of, getting that award and being nominated, and that I was so passionate about dementia services. And it was just a highlight of my career, basically, to win that award, because the NHS dementia team in Hertfordshire are just leading the way in dementia services and early diagnosis and treatment. And I'm just so proud to have been a part in that. So it was an amazing time in the Alzheimer Society and the NHS.
Yeah, absolutely. And where do you think that? Because as you talked about, you were like, I'm not sure I was even going to get an interview at the Alzheimer Society. I
Yeah,
wasn't sure. I went to first interview, wasn't sure. Went to second interview, wasn't sure.
yeah,
And obviously, investing in you, that nominate,
yeah,
really backing you in your career, nominating you for
yeah,
awards, and think, I'm not sure whether I should win that. That kind of.
yeah,
But clearly, there's a real resilience as well to you, Donna-Louise, because the transitions that you've gone through from retail and personal circumstances,
yeah.
all of that change that you've gone through. I mean, do you think that's really impacted your approach on to your day-to-day work now, or how you approach things in your career at the moment?
Yeah, I think I am. My friends always say that, and colleagues at Samaritans have said that resilience is my superpower, and that I think I am. Yeah, I can see I am a very resilient person. I'm also very boundaried, and I am ambitious in a positive way, and I'm empowering. So you get different approaches in life, and for me, I like to be empowered and supported. And as a manager, I often describe myself as a leader because I take great pride in empowering my teams, and that's how I like to be managed or led as well. And so I think it's a combination of those things that have made me the leader that I am, from those experiences. And I think that's what spurs me on, is that empowerment for change and to do a good job. And that I am, I like that personal challenge of doing a good job. And, I will put in, that the effort that's needed because I genuinely believe in it. And I genuinely believed in the Alzheimer Society and wanted to do a good job for the patients that we supported, and I really believed that they deserved a huge amount of support after a diagnosis of dementia, and that first year after a diagnosis is so important. And I could literally see that in my team's work and the people that I interacted with, and I just got it. And I think it was kind of, I just had that almost like a personal connection with it, and that spurred me on as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think that, like you say, when you've got that real passion for the cause and that that mission-driven organisation, and an
Yeah,
organisation that's prepared to invest in you and support
yeah,
you, and
exactly.
it's really led on to great
Yeah,
further opportunities in the sector for
yeah.
you.
Yeah, no, definitely, and that's what I really valued about them, and what I valued about other charities. And I mentioned earlier I volunteer at Samaritans, and I've volunteered for them for coming up for 13 years,
Yeah.
and I just really value them as an organisation. And again, I've had some great experiences in different volunteer roles that again have shaped me as a person and shaped my career. And I think it's really important to value back, the organisation, as much as they're investing in you. I feel invested in Samaritans even as a volunteer, and I've been that way with the other charities that I've gone on to work for.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And obviously now you're in a chief executive position with the
Yeah,
Emmaus Village Carlton. I mean, obviously there's a bit of a journey between Alzheimer's Society and where you
yeah,
are
yeah.
now. Do you just fill us in on what that journey has looked like?
Yeah, so again, it was like quirks of fate, and I think my career has taken different turns through, quirks of fate and circumstance that you wouldn't always plan for. So I was unfortunately made redundant from Alzheimer's Society because they lost a contract, and my role was disestablished.
Yeah.
So it was really gutting, and it was a really difficult time to be made redundant, and it was gutting to leave behind all the great work that I'd done, and a lot of the work that we had put in place was like stopped and changed. So that was really gutting, and I needed obviously needed to work, couldn't just not work, and but because of that experience, my job after the Alzheimer's Society was almost like a job to rescue me in a way. It was kind of a similar but slightly lower manager role in a charity, but it was there to stabilise me and just kind of, give me some grounding. I stayed there for a couple of years. I knew I wasn't going to stay there forever. It was a lovely experience, don't get me wrong, but I was, we were I think there was about 10 of us in the management team, and I was one of the eldest in age and one of the most experienced managers, but a relatively junior manager role. And so it was really a lifesaver role. It was never going to be, a permanent one. And so, kind of that was for a couple of years. And then at the time, I was very interested in the homeless sector because I volunteered for Crisis, the national charity. And I'd become really interested in the homeless sector and what was happening. And then a job came up at a homeless charity. And again, it was one of those things I thought, actually, something sparked an interest. And I thought, actually, I want to take a punt on this. And because I'd volunteered with Crisis, I thought that's going to give me some good grounding. And again, it got me back up to a senior leadership role in a charity. And so again, it was one of those things. So I thought, I'll apply, not sure what's going to happen, but I really clicked with the CEO, and then went through a couple of rounds of interviews, and then again was lucky, got the job, and just loved it. Absolutely loved working for that homeless charity, and I was responsible for sort of support services, operations, and deputised for the CEO. And then that was through before the pandemic and then through the pandemic. So I had a lot of experience, again, at a high level, working with other CEOs. And again, I was accepted into that CEO group in the homeless sector where we were. And that's what made me think, actually, you're not a CEO, but you could be a CEO. And again, some of my colleagues used to say, Donna-Louise, you sound like a CEO. You're behaving and acting and sounding like it. You should think about giving this a go. And again, I thought, me as a CEO, never. And a couple of friends had said the same thing. So again, it was just that natural progression in that homeless charity.
And again, it's that there's a bit of a theme here, isn't it? I guess of others seeing that potential and giving you that nudge and that push or that gentle persuasion, or sometimes maybe not so gentle, but encouragement along the way.
No, definitely. And again, it was I left at the final end of the pandemic, and I left with full blessing of the board and my CEO, and they knew that they couldn't keep me forever, and they knew that I was going to go off and be a CEO, and they gave I had full blessing of the board and my staff and the rest of the leadership team were in full support of me, and so that was really beautiful because it could have been difficult, jumping ship after the pandemic, but they were so supportive and so grateful of my time there, and they knew that they couldn't keep me forever, sort of thing. So it was a lovely moment in a way, even though you were leaving a great organisation.
And that was leaving to go straight into a chief executive position, was it?
So I left the homeless charity to do a slight detour. So again, a slight quirk of fate, slight detour. I saw a CEO role for a charity called Beyond Detention in Bedford. And I saw it and I knew of the charity. It's a little local charity here. And they support people held at Yarl's Road Immigration Centre. And I knew some of the volunteers, I knew previous director. And I thought, I could do that. It was a smaller charity than my previous homeless charity. And again, friends had said, you need to apply for it. And I nearly didn't apply. And I left it right to the last minute. Because again, I just thought, should I leave? And why am I leaving? And I don't want to really leave, but this is a great opportunity. And so I literally left it to the last minute to submit my application. Got invited to an interview, got invited to a second interview, and just loved the people that I met, really bonded with the trustees, and accepted that offer. And so that was my, first CEO role. And it was one of those moments where I thought, actually, I've made it. I didn't intend to become a charity CEO.
Yeah.
I think it's just been a natural progression. And I think with encouragement from service users and staff and volunteers and previous CEOs, again, they've empowered me to make those changes in my career. So I joined Beyond Detention as their new CEO, and went through a big period of change because they literally just changed their name to Beyond Detention. My predecessor had set about that change, and then I picked up the baton, and then set about developing a 3-year strategy for them because of the name change and branding. And so I oversaw the branding development of Beyond Detention and the strategic plan, and the new values and mission statements. And so that was an amazing opportunity and an amazing time to be a charity CEO. And I really, value that experience. For my first role, you don't get your first role, you only get that one opportunity. So I'm, again, really proud of that achievement and really grateful to the board for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah. I guess I'm quite interested in what it's like to be a charity chief executive of a small organisation, because having done that myself in less than a £500,000 turnover organisation where I led. You're literally doing everything from writing funding bids in the evening to meeting the local MP to representing the organisation in a beneficiary meeting, right through to I don't know, emptying the bins on Friday. I mean, it's all encompassing, right?
No, and I think that was a bit of a culture change for me, because I had come from a management team, and I was a senior manager in that team in my previous homeless charity, to being the only manager. And so I was CEO, and there was only one manager type role, which was mine, and the rest were staff roles. And so that was odd, that kind of culture shift. It was very much doing lots of income generation, lots of strategic work, working with the trustees, working on the brand and working on all of that. But at the same time, if I was the only person in the office, I would be answering the phone and, fielding telephone calls, and things like that. And there was a lot of interaction with the volunteers, which was great because, I value volunteering from my own experience. And so I had a lot of, interaction with volunteers. In my role, I would be at Earlswood on a weekly basis. So a lot of interaction with people held at Earlswood and the staff at Earlswood. So very, very different in that kind of no 2 days are the same. And being, I think, but being a small charity CEO does give you that grounding. It does shape you, as a leader, even though, yes, you might be the one to take the bin out on a Friday, or you're washing up the cups because no one else is going to wash your cups up. It does give you that grounding. It definitely gives you a grounding in teamwork, in communication, because you can't hide in a small charity, and you have to be resilient in your communication. So that was definitely a good grounding for me, going into a small organisation. And again, it was just one of those things where in my previous organisation, we had different manager roles, we had different staff roles. And then when I joined, I was like, well, who does X, Y, Z? And the staff were like, we don't have anybody to do that. That probably comes from your job role. So that was, kind of an awakening as well over, actually, if something needs sorting out, it probably is going to be my role to do it. So
that's the bullet point in your job description where it says "and any other duties."
And any other tasks. But again, I just approached it with, well, we're a small team, and I wouldn't do anything that my staff wouldn't do, or I wouldn't, So I thought, well, it's the nature of the job, and it's all good experience. So
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely that all hands on deck type approach, isn't it? But I think, even, having worked in, large retailers, I think, again, that generalist, experience that I think retail gives you, it gives you that grounding into these types of roles.
Definitely. And I think it's just about, that communication, that problem solving, reacting to things. And I think, I often say to my leadership team, one of the best things that we can do is how we react to problems, and problems and good things. Our reacting is what's important, as well as how we solve those problems. I think that's all part of the grounding of being a small charity CEO.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've obviously
Yeah.
been at Emmaus Village Carlton for seven, 8 months? Are we
No,
in it?
6 months.
6 months. Yeah, okay. So
Six
yes,
months now.
yeah. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So so yes, but so again, that other transition is slightly larger organisation. But
Yeah.
talk us through what the first 6 months has looked like. What it's how it's gone.
Yeah, so it's just been a whirlwind of 6 months, and I think because I had like a long notice period from Beyond Detention,
Mm.
I was meeting the trustees here at Emmaus Village
Yeah.
Carlton on a monthly basis, and I'd met my leadership team before I started,
Yeah.
and they were giving me briefings on various decisions that had to be made once I started. So I felt I had a really good, strong induction, even from day one, because again they had done well to prepare, for me coming,
Mm.
and then I started just before Christmas, and was very much. I just want to spend the rest of December getting to know people, talking to our companions. So companions is the name for our service users who stay with us. And for me, it was really important to get to know them and spend time with them. So my first couple of weeks were very much, kind of just coming in, jeans and a sweater, casually dressed, chatting and having meetings and cups of tea with people. December, Christmas, New Year period,
Mm.
and just really
Mm.
getting to know people and letting people get to know me,
Yeah.
which I think is equally as important to kind of that mutually get to know each other. And then because my predecessor was an interim CEO, there was a lot of decisions that we needed to move quickly on. So
Yeah.
from the new year up until now, we've been very busy with lots of big decisions.
Sure.
And normally in a new role, you take 6 months to learn the organisation and settle in and observe. I have done a lot of that, and I've spent a lot of time in each department, and again with companions and volunteers and staff.
Yeah.
But we've had to make big decisions. So we've had various building projects happen in the last 6 months, which have been amazing for
Yeah.
the organisation. And we've got another big project that started last month that's going on all over the summer. And
Mm.
again, we had to start that as soon as possible
Yeah.
for very good reasons. And so there's been a lot of regeneration, a lot of building work. We're on a beautiful site. We're on approximately 15 acres of beautiful Bedfordshire countryside.
Yeah.
And the charity is set over 12 buildings. So a big physical site,
Yeah.
and we have been working to upgrade the site and just make the environment better
Mm.
for our companions and customers and staff and volunteers.
Yeah, yeah. So walking into an organisation that's moving a bit, fast paced. There's decisions that
Yes,
you've got lots of
yeah,
meaning to make. Where
yeah.
where have you been able to turn to for that support along the way? Because these are, like you say, big decisions for an organisation.
Yeah, so I think definitely my chair of trustees, Jeremy, he's the chair of trustees here. Because we were meeting for coffee before I started, we would gotten to know each other, and he's been a big source of support. And I mentioned earlier I have a coach. So Jay is an amazing coach, and I've had various conversations with him, and he was one of the first people I told when I got this job, and we had a couple of sessions to prepare me
Yeah.
and to prepare for that change and from a small charity to a larger charity.
Mm.
So he's been brilliant as a good sounding board. And then I have a small network of other charity CEOs that I met through Akivo, so a bit of a plug for Akivo.
Yeah, great.
And we have a small kind of peer group support, and there are amazing cheerleaders. And again, I like to be empowered and to empower others. And I think that empowerment of each other helps. And I've made some great sort of friends in the CEOs that I know now,
Yeah.
and they're a massive source of support. Where you can just ring up or send a WhatsApp to say, I need help with X, Y, Z. How have you approached it?
Yeah.
How can you talk me through how to approach something, or what stance to take? So I think definitely having good people around you as empowering, as an empowering force, as that, cheerleaders, as I often say,
Yeah.
is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really fascinated by that. That cheerleader network, because sometimes you just need people that you can just either download from, can't you? Which I guess is what coaches there, right through to. I know in my scenarios where I can text people and say, I think I made a mistake, or I think I've done this wrong. What do you reckon? You kind of
Exactly.
need that support and that grounding.
And I think as charity CEOs, more can be done when we empower each other.
Yeah.
And it's not a battle of who's the best CEO or who's the highest turnover charity CEO, who's got the biggest staff team or volunteer team. For me, it's about who you connect with, on a personal level, who's going to support you professionally. There's several charity CEOs who are in that kind of cheerleading category, which I just think is so important. And we support each other. And there's a charity CEO that I met at an Akivo event, who lives locally in Bedford, and we said we must connect. We'd gone to this event in London. He said, we must keep in touch. And, I live near your charity and whatever. And then I wasn't aware of their charity. And then after the Akivo event, I looked them up and I thought, oh my God, like, how am I going to, be able to support this person, and what are they going to need from me? Because their charity is a lot bigger even than my new one here. And then they got in touch to arrange to meet for coffee. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to support them? And we had this coffee and I kept thinking, God, I'm not going to be able to support them. And all they needed was their own cheerleader. They needed a cheerleader. They needed a listening ear. They didn't mind that my charity was a lot smaller. That didn't intimidate them. It didn't put them off in the opposite way. And we formed, a good bond that, we keep in touch. We meet up for coffee. And I invited them here after I joined, because I wanted to show off, and I was proud of my achievements, and I wanted their advice and guidance, and they came over recently to see my charity. So again, it's just having that down to earth connection and not being intimidated by each other, and just having that human connection over you're all there to do very similar roles, and you get more from empowering each other. No matter the size of your charity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something the sector does really well, and definitely through people like Akivo, through Ella, through those types of peer-to-peer networking and opportunities.
Definitely.
But like you say, that absolute drive to be the best they can, deliver the best services, and I think the other thing that comes out of that is partnership working as well, which is always strong and good to see across the sector.
Definitely, well. And people are better together and stronger together. I met with another charity CEO on Monday, who's new to the sector in Bedford, and we talked about how to work together, and that we should work together better, and we should take that newness in each other and make both our organisations better and work together. And it was just so refreshing to hear someone else with a similar ethos. And we're not we don't need to be in competition with each other. And that working in the homeless sector can be tough. It can be tough on your resilience, and it can be tough making decisions around homelessness. You need that backup of people that you can trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, a bit of a theme to the conversation is, you've referred to people throughout your career, whether that was back in retail or through the charity sector, that have been those, either in those encouragers, those cheerleaders, those people that have pushed and driven you on, and I guess given you that confidence either to apply for roles or to push some doors and to see. And then those opportunities within the sector have seen you, I guess, career flourish in within the charity sector.
No, definitely, and I think there's definitely different people that stand out. I have an old area manager when I was in retail, and we're still in touch now. And he was a great, almost like mentor type, figure for me. And I've realised that I've almost turned into him in some respects, because his mantras and his leadership is ingrained in me. And I remember a couple of years ago messaging him to say, "OMG, I think I was you in my management meeting." And, I said that I was talking like him. And I said, "What have you done to me? You've influenced me so much over the years." And he thought that was hilarious. And he was laughing with me, saying, well, it did sink in then. He said, everything that I taught you has sunk in. And he's been a great inspiration. And we're, we worked together 20 odd years ago, and we're still in touch through social media. And again, I've gone to him, at different points in my career saying, what do I do about this? Or, what decision do you think I should make about my career? So people like that, have really inspired me, and colleagues at the same level, who've, inspired me and pushed me, and empowered me, which is important. Yeah. But I think as well, it's not just my colleagues, it's service users, that I've met over the years that also inspire me, especially in the homeless sector.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that we would talk about is about that, investing in yourself, the qualifications, that belief in yourself, and really pushing, which is really evident as well. And the importance of volunteering, right? So that transition from retail into the charity sector actually, was a struggle to begin with, but with the volunteering experience, that kind of opened up opportunities, or I guess your CV landed in a slightly more compatible way into the sector that gave that opportunity.
Definitely. I mean, I would always, advocate volunteering, and we have a big volunteer team here at Emmaus Village Carlton, and we've got about 80 volunteers. And I, often speak to them, I communicate to them directly. And I said when I joined that, I am a volunteer and I really value volunteering, and it's really important to me. So, I really wanted to convey that message to my volunteer team here so that they understood on a personal level that importance. And I would always encourage people to volunteer for a cause that, they feel passionately about.
Yeah. Donna-Louise, it's been brilliant to have you on the Charity Changemakers podcast. Really appreciate you taking the time to share that journey with us. I'm always interested, if you were reflected now and you could talk to your earlier self at the beginning of your career and give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe it's a piece of advice that one of these cheerleaders has given you for your career through the year. I mean, is there something that sort of stands out, or something that you would say to yourself?
I think have more self-belief, and, and have that can-do attitude and put it into practice. I think, as humans, we spend a lot of time doubting ourselves and doubting our ability. And I think it would be that you can do it if you put your mind to it, and have people around you to support you. I never had the opportunity when I left school to get a degree. I did it in my 30s. That doesn't matter. I still have a degree. And I think it is just that, believe in yourself, and surround yourself with the right people who will make that happen for you.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. That's great advice. And absolutely, we see that can-do attitude throughout your career, and you sharing that with us today. I'm so incredibly grateful for you taking time to share with us. Look, I always think we should do these things again in sort of 12, 18 months time to see how things have progressed.
No, definitely. Thank you.
Some really lovely insights, and we just really thank you for your time.
No, it's been a pleasure talking, Adam, and I hope I inspire other CEOs or future CEOs. I think, people should give it a go. The charity world is a wonderful place to be. And I always say, if I can do it, so can you.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Donna-Louise, I'm sure there'll be people that have maybe got questions or want to things that they might want to fire at you, or ideas they might want to pop your way. Are you happy that when we put this out, we sort of tag you on LinkedIn? Is that a good way for people to get in touch and come this way?
That's
cool. Perfect. Yes. Great. Well, thank you again, and we look forward to seeing how the journey continues.
That's great. Thank you, Adam.
And that's a wrap for this week on the Charity Changemakers podcast. Remember, you can be the change you want to see in the world. We hope that this episode has inspired you to get out there and make a difference. This podcast was brought to you by Charisma Charity Recruitment, one of the UK's leading recruitment consultancies for the charity sector. Whether you're a passionate professional seeking your next challenge, or a charity searching for a top-tier talent, Charisma Charity Recruitment can help. Visit their website at charismarecruitment.co.uk to explore their latest positions and to connect your organisation with the change makers shaping the future of the non-profit world. Thanks for joining us.